All right, guys, welcome back. Sahtain. Let's get started with our next workshop. Next workshop will be hosted by Mr. Steve Farnsworth. Mr. Farnsworth is a Chief Digital Strategist at Jolt Digital Marketing. In 2012, he was appointed as the Communications and Social Media Advisor to TEDx San Jose, California. He has been noted by Forbes magazine as one of the top 50 social media power influencers and by magazines as being the number one influential PR tweeter with the highest percentage of good Twitter followers. Mr. Farnsworth has been included in the top 35 connectors on Twitter, awarded as one of the 2011 Nifty 50 top Twitter men, and cited as one of the most influential people online by Fast Company's The Influence Project. Without further ado, Mr. Steve Farnsworth, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. You guys have sure had a lot of content the last couple of days, or today and yesterday, huh? You guys are ready to go and do it? No? So I'm kind of curious. Well, first of all, I think that's, let me just share one more thing about who I am. I consult with companies who come to me. I'm a digital marketer, and I've been in traditional marketing for 20 years. Lead generation, public relations, corporate communications. And in a few years back, I actually got, more than a few years ago, but got really interested in social media because I thought it was an interesting way for people to communicate. And more specifically, as a communicator, that was an opportunity for us actually to tell our stories directly to our consumers. And that's what, to me, social media was really interesting. But what I'm going to walk through today is a lot of you guys are probably in the same place. You probably are like, where do you start? I get a lot of clients who are not sure where to start. And so what I'm going to try to do is, I know there are a lot of different industries. There are agency people here. There are corporate side folks here. And I'm going to walk you through the process I use. It's not a cookie cutter process. And I'm going to show you the questions that I use, that I do primarily is what I use with my clients, is what I do, the consulting part. And it's setting really clean goals and understanding what those goals are about. And then what we can do to implement what we're trying to do. I'm going to cover a couple things today. Research, strategy, identifying some influencer online, more about kind of connect with them. And content creation, because content really is we hear a lot about create content, but content really is the currency of the social web. Measurement. I have a couple little case studies or examples, really, that people I think are doing some nice work, and you can decide which of those kind of make sense to kind of learn from yourself. And I want to leave plenty of time for questions, because this is an interactive part. I'm going to have a couple assignments for you guys. You guys are going to be doing some homework in the class. Not sure that's homework, but anyway, so we're going to be doing stuff. You're going to have to participate, and I want you to ask questions, because you guys have heard a lot of things thrown at you the last couple of days. And now you guys, ideally, are going to go back and implement what you've learned. So let's try to put a little more meat on the bones, more specifically, about all this engage in the conversation stuff means. If I forgot anything that the course outline describes what I'm going to do, please feel free to ask me what it is, if there's something you want to talk about. How many people right now are currently managing a social channel for their own company or for a client here? Okay, thank you. How many people plan to leave here and start managing a social channel for their company or a client? I'm not thinking everybody raised their hand. Why is everybody here? So, bad news. Social media is dead. So we can all go home now. The reality is that social media is a buzzword, and what we're really talking about has been going on for 15 or 18 years. It's a way people communicate with us directly. And that is now, and social media really just, people confuse social media with the tools, Twitter and Facebook, which we're going to talk about today. But it's really a part that's becoming more baked in to marketing itself. And so it's not really a separate thing. It's actually a new element of digital marketing. When the internet started, when people had, 18 years ago, we have email, We had message boards. We had ways to connect and communicate. That's what we're really talking about. And social media is just a newer, fancier version with better tools to do it now. This guy is Tom Feremsky. He's a famous guy in Silicon Valley, former Financial Times reporter, and quite an influencer. And about 5 years ago, he said every company is a media company. And it's like, well, it sounds really important. What does it mean? And for him, what he was talking about as a reporter, he controlled the means of distribution, the printing presses, and had the audience. It was his job to connect. Now we all have that ability. Now, and this is really important to understand the difference between advertising and kind of that marketing speak stuff. No one reads that. Nobody likes it. Nobody here reads that. And when you read that kind of marketing crap speak, I hope I don't offend anybody, we go, that's not something I want to read, we turn it down. We have an opportunity to say, actually, to reach with our, to connect with our customers and tell them what our story is, why we think what we think, and let them decide if it makes sense. And if we do that conversation honestly, and we give them good information, they're going to talk to other people, just like we do in real life. Hey, they told me some really good stuff. I had a really positive experience. You should go check out so-and-so. This is not really working terribly well. Do we have new batteries? This is actually worked fine this morning. Whoops. Okay. I know you guys already heard about this guy a couple times today. He's my hero, a really nice guy in real life. And he did an interesting experiment we're going to do here. He travels the world. All he does is speak on new media. And he has the books I think have been mentioned here. And he asked an interesting question, and we're actually going to do it here. We're going to see what kind of results we get. Do we have more batteries for this by chance? I really do think batteries are part of the issue here. I guess more. So he asked people in Latvia, across the US, Australia, Malaysia, Poland, this question. In the last 1 or 2 months, in order to research a product or service used, personally, professionally, did you use one of these things to do your research? We all research before we buy something, especially a car or even makeup or vacation. These are important things. And so we asked these people, so let's do the experiment right here. So last 1 or 2 months, either personally or professionally, have you used to do research direct mail to make a purchase? By show of hands, anybody in this room? We got one. One person, direct mail. 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to say, based on the size of the room, that's basically about 5%, something like that. Phone book. How many use the phone book to research? 1, 2. So I'm going to say like 3%. Trade show, attended a trade show as a non-vendor in order to research a product or service. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 6%. Used mainstream media. Used mainstream media, that would be an advertisement, radio, TV, advertising of any kind, like that kind of, yeah, okay, about 20% I would say. Thank you, sir. And in the last couple of months, in order to research a product or service you guys were going to buy, did you ask your social network, friends, email, Facebook, Twitter, and they sent you a link and you checked it out? How many people? Yeah, look at all those hands. Look at all those hands. I would say 80%, is that about right? What do you guys think? About 80% there? And the last question, and we'll actually look at the answers he got. Used Google or search engine of some kind? Is anybody in here not? Okay, 100%. Okay. So let's see what others said. And it's literally, there's a video of him doing this on the internet. I love the video, but let's see what the world said. Direct mail, 2%. We had about 5%. Yellow pages, about 3%. We had 5 he had. Trade show, about 6%, 5. Mainstream media, about 20%. You guys think that you guys matched the rest? 95% for social media and about 100% for Google. Does that surprise anybody here, really? What'd you say? Yeah. So if you're a company or an agency working with clients, what you just learn about how people research stuff, does that reflect the marketing budgets you work with? What does that tell you? I mean, you guys are some of the smartest people here in the entire area because you came to this thing. You guys are all professionals. What does that tell you? That your budgets that you're dealing with don't match the way people really look for products today. This is absolutely the case. You're absolutely right. It has to do with also protected interests. People are very used to the way we've done it. They don't understand this yet. You knew before I asked these questions the kinds of answers you're going to get. But not everybody in your department or your bosses understand that. And what we're talking about really is just rebalancing your marketing mix. You don't need to tell it's all bad, it's all going to go away. It's really about finding a better integration, okay? I'm sorry, I'll tell you what this says. This is from research that was done, and the higher up it is, the people who were asked mentioned it more, and these are our channels, marketing channels, and the lower down it is, they mention it more negatively. The further over here it is, it's more effective, and the bigger it is how much they're committed to doing it in the future. So what this is mobile marketing over here. Down here in the negative space in the little bubbles, print and television. And this is SEO, which is interesting. This is visual information and product sponsorship. Blogging and podcasting, social media, and online video. A lot of commitment, very positive, very effective. So the presentations are available online if you want to show your boss this. This is what people are saying by the researchers by a group called the Altimeter Group, which is altimetergroup.com. All the research is free, you can download it. It's a great study. Any questions about what we've already talked about? Who's going to ask? Anyone? Okay. So I find that we're not going to go to all these very deep. A couple of them we're going to spend most of our time on today. That there tends to be kind of 8 key areas. Knowledge, that's understanding who you're going to talk to specifically. And this, it seems so silly or it seems so obvious, but goal setting. Having the right goals based on the knowledge you understand about your audience will set you up for success. Solutions is the content, and we'll talk about content creation and how you might do it depending on what kind of nature your customers are, if it's a lifestyle product versus a technical purchase or B2B or B2C. It changes a little bit, but ultimately it's content. What you provide is that part of that fluid for that conversation. People talk about the conversation. This is what you provide in terms of value. Inclusion is just including everybody and also influencers, people in the company promoting it, responsiveness. We heard about people who didn't respond to things online. This is like getting customer service involved. Regularity through your channels in terms of publishing, that you don't publish once a month, that you publish regular content and updates. Measurement, and ultimately just evolution, which is just about looking at what you've learned. Because you guys are in the cutting edge here. There are people who've done this before, but your areas, you're in your own region, you have your own unique needs and culture, and you guys are literally going to be pioneers in what you're doing. So let's talk about learning about your customer's body language. We're going to do a little exercise here. I'm going to ask you guys. I'm not just being nice to you when I say you guys are a room full of very smart people. You probably have had a chance to get to know your seat partners, people around you. We're going to work together a little bit because you guys are a brain trust. You're going to act as consultants for each other today. So I'm going to ask you to answer a couple of questions and work with each other. So here's what we're going to do. These are the questions I tend to go through in my process. Who's actually going to buy the product? Who's actually going to buy the product? Now, this seems obvious, but a lot of times people go, everybody. No, not everybody. If everybody's going to buy your product, you guys would be all rich and you wouldn't be here. But when you think about it, we had Abdel, who was here someplace, works at a company that does pest control and food safety. Oh, here he is. And we actually talked about this last night. So he said, I'm doing some stuff on Facebook. I'm doing a campaign. I'm saying, I wouldn't do that. He goes, what? And we talked a little about what the areas, and there are a lot of areas. This was just over dinner, so we didn't get into it very deep. But talking about what he did is they have, in terms of their need, they have food safety is one of the things that they do. And so the people who are really going to use that are not going to be everybody. It's going to be restaurants or a set of people who are concerned with food safety. So identifying and bringing back who you want to talk to first, or who's the most important, and then later branching out is what you want to do. So who do you actually want to talk to? Is it going to be, who's that person? Banks, lawyers, homemakers, sports car drivers, insurance companies. Try to take a moment, write down who your most likely buyer is going to be. Most likely buyer is going to be. So everybody writing this down because you guys are going to work together. This is part of an assignment. And so this is in a complex sell. You're going to have multiple people. If you're selling makeup, it's a much simpler list. But here is like, who are the people in that buying process? In a complex sell, you're going to have, in any sell, you're going to have these components. So maybe one person does it all. Maybe 5 people who do it. Who influences that decision? Who's going to use it? Who's going to make a recommendation for it? Who's going to test it, evaluate it, and who's got budget sign-off? So think about the people involved in the product that you're talking about. You've picked a product, talking about selling something. Who are these people? Take a moment to write that down. Raise your hand if you've already written it down. Nobody? Okay, still writing? Raise your hands when you start answer this question. So it's a question. So if you're selling a piece of industrial equipment and it costs $100,000, probably what's going to happen is the person that's going to sign that off is going to probably be a VP level, probably the VP of operations, maybe the CEO, depending on what the budget authority is. If it's cosmetics, it's going to be the woman who's buying it. So who actually decides who gets the money? That make sense? Any other questions on that? Raise your hand if you've answered those questions or at least have a first draft. Just nobody else has done it? Okay. You want another minute? So when you think about what the product you've written down and who's going to buy it, why are they going to buy it? What's the reason? What's the pain that you're solving? And now, it doesn't always pain. If you're selling travel, pain is probably not, their biggest pain is going to be not wanting to have a bad vacation, wanting to have fun, right? If it's somebody who's a sales software, it's probably going to be the VP of sales. So what's the pain point that you're really solving for them? So what I'd like you to do is, you don't have to share what you've written down, but I'd like you to, if you're willing to, in your groups. I'd like you to break in just where you're sitting, create groups of 3 or 4, and I'd like you guys are going to consult with each other. Share what you've written down and listen as consultants to whoever's willing to share. We're just spend 5 minutes doing this. And just make sure that they've really answered those questions. And if they can answer them better. Because this is the part when people tend to answer very generically, very broad, not very specific. So as good consultants, what you're trying to do is making sure they've thought through their answer. And this is just a first pass. I know I'm just asking it to you on the fly. But just work with each other for 5 minutes. Will you guys do that? Make a little 3 or 4 groups. We spend 5 minutes doing that. I'll time it, and we'll go again. Oh, okay. So I know that there's probably a lot more you could do on that. This is just to kind of start thinking about it, and I'm happy to answer questions afterward, too. Understanding about what pain is. Now, if you're dealing with you want to understand what people's issues are when they're buying. And if you're dealing in an organization where you have a sales staff, they're a great place to start. If you don't have a sales staff, even if you do, you may want to actually talk directly to your customers. What's important to them? Customers will normally, we tend to be very honest about what's important to us. Unfortunately, most companies just don't really listen. They hear what they want to hear. You know, if we're buying an office thing, we go, well, what's important to you? Well, it's these things. I want an office that's clean and looks respectable and where I can do business, but I know this or that. People will tell us what they want. So you want to understand what is important to that customer. I think if surveys, if you're not sure, you probably have a good sense, but surveys are nice also. And again, the questions that you're going to ask on a survey, it really depends on the kind of market. These questions are more geared to like more B2B, but you can imagine kinds of questions like this. These are just things that you might ask. What's your biggest challenge at a company? What kind of training would help you sell more X? What's most frustrating about blank? What you want to do is ask questions. As marketers, we tend to ask a lot of questions which we already know the answers to. And you know, we'll go, oh, I have 20 questions to ask. What's your favorite ice cream? You know, answers that we already really know too. So when you think about questions, you want to ask just a couple questions that are going to give you the most information. And the more questions on a survey that you do, the fewer responses you're going to get. If you ask a lot of questions, like what industry, and if it's really important to know the industry, ask that. But is that, you know, if you can ask like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 questions at a maximum, you have more people answer. So pick questions that would help you understand the pain points or the interest or what's important to your customer. There are a couple tools online that you can use to do this. Some of these are free or have free options or inexpensive options to do. SurveyMonkey is a great tool for surveys. SurveyMonkey. A thing called PollDaddy. These are simple polls. These are more very simple, not a whole lot of customization, but again, free options. And if you want to spend no money and do it all yourself or something fancy, Google Docs, which just changed their name to Google Drive, allows you to create questionnaires in the form section of Google Drive, which is what's called Google Docs. Does anybody here use Google Docs? Okay, great. So you guys know it. So you can do your own. I would prefer to use like SurveyMonkey, but questionnaires are a great way to find out at least what's important. So when you think about your audience, let's just think of one question. We talked a little bit about for the information you've already developed. We have a product in mind, ideally. We know who we're speaking to. What question would we want to know the most? What question could you ask? that would tell you the most about your customer, about their needs. And normally you might, like I said, we would do like 3 or 4 or 5 questions, but let's just come up with one right now. What might you ask? And so let's do this back in our work groups. Consult with each other. What question, and this sounds really obvious, like when you ask a question, what might the answer be? I have people want to ask lots of questions. The answers provide no insight to the customer. What question would help you understand? So if you're selling offices, office space, I might ask a simple question initially. What's most important to you? What's most frustrating about buying office space? That might lead me to another round of questions, a second questionnaire that would dial down on what I learned from the first set. But let's try and just come up with one question that's going to tell us something meaningful about our customer. Let's just take 5 minutes. Please work in groups.
On your targets, who you actually want to ask the question to, because it can't be just one unified question for everyone.
Right, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm glad you brought that up. I just wanted you guys to think about the questions you asked, because dialing down on that question to get to the nugget of understanding what people really want out of you, or what they consider a good purchase. So what did you come up with?
Actually, we thought about Nike or any sports apparel or to sell sports products. So it depends, because you have different targets, such as athletes, and you also have the teenagers.
So if you were, did you pick one of those groups to ask a question to, like the athletes?
For the teenagers, actually, we chose to ask them, what is your favorite sport and who is your influencer, like your role model within this sport. For one reason is because if we want to identify brand ambassadors in the future, so this influencer would be the actual brand ambassador for the brand. And the favorite sport, it's because it varies from one country to another, so it depends on your market, which sports was popular within this market. As for athletes, we go back to the pain points, because you see what makes them more comfortable within their sport when they're actually pursuing their athletic career. So this is, depending on their answer, is what you actually offer as a brand.
I think that is really good. You're talking about lifestyle products.
Yeah.
And the question, by asking some of those questions, since it's a lifestyle product, if it's an athlete, it's a little different because there's some performance issues, and you'd ask performance-based questions for
That's
an
right.
athlete.
That depends on the pain points that you're going to actually provide for your
But when your lifestyle, wanting to understand how that fits into somebody's lifestyle.
But it's not just lifestyle. It's core sports. It's athletes. It's sports performance.
For a user of those sports. But a lot of Nike, though, most people buy them not for their sports, but because they like to wear really cool shoes.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you need to understand the difference. If you're targeting, that would you break down, then you'd ask questions about the sports performances you were doing, or about, even understanding what sports they like, even if they're not playing those sports in those shoes, would allow you to understand more about what you might share with them in terms of insight. Because if you're a shoe company, you probably have a lot of good insight about people who use a shoe, other people who, as part of their lifestyle, and you can share those kinds of stories. Lifestyle brands are a lot of fun. We'll talk about those a little bit, and also some tech ones. All right, those are some really good questions. So it's a longer process, and I think you made some good points in terms of, it really depends on what you're asking. You need to get down to it, but ask questions that are going to tell you something about your audience. Let's talk about a couple of free resources in terms of this. So these are those kinds of questions I'd want to know. I do a lot of that data collection through interviews with the people at the company, and encourage them to do surveys. Here's some other tools that I like. AdWords. Go ahead.
Can I still ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. In my case, if we're talking about Boyker Public Health, which we solve problems like pest control or a need for food safety, I think all the businesses are here to fill the need of the client or the customer. So I'm asking, like, if I'm targeting the housewives in the home, in the house, how was your experience with Boyker, and did we solve your problem? And it's the same question targeting the corporate accounts. When we talk about a specific restaurant, the target is the manager or the person responsible for that.
So your question, let's apply to either one, but let's apply it to the manager. How was your experience, and did we solve your problem? So that's why, that's actually, I'm glad you shared that, and I'm actually going to use you as a bad example. So I apologize in advance.
Okay.
Because it's a great bad example.
Okay.
Because
how so?
Well, so
Yeah.
ask me that question. I'm a manager. Ask me that question.
Okay. When I'm asking you about the experience,
Ask me the question right
okay. How was your experience with Boyker?
Good.
Okay.
now. Next question.
Did we solve your problem?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
What did you learn?
What I learned from your answer that
You just stop now. You really.
okay. I haven't learned anything.
See, what you'd want to know is, see, that you know, does anyone want to try how they might improve that question? You're like, well, let me come to you in a second. So, no, you actually want to know, what did you like? What did you like? And you know, yeah, well, you'd want to ask more specific questions about what did you like about it. I would probably, how I'd really, that kind of situation. What service is relevant? Why was it, you know, I would probably want to develop questions about why they want, what motivated them to buy that service. And because once you understand what motivated them to pay for food, you know, food safety stuff. Yeah, unfortunately, those are good for standard ongoing service quality, and I'm not dismissing that, but we're talking about trying to understand more about the person's motivation. Yeah, why did they hire us for food safety? And that's going to be because they're scared of lawsuits, they're scared of damage to their reputation. Why did they pick us? Because of your reputation. Well, what about a reputation? You guys get the job done. So in those kinds of answers, I now know that what they want, what I would share in terms of part of my brand message is, as I talk about my track record, I would talk about my awards. I would show case studies of other restaurants that use this and who have a Michelin star. Those kinds of things is where you would go with that kind of information. Yeah, I wouldn't ask that question, but I'd ask questions that would tell you that answer. Because people, if you said, why did you hire this? And go, oh, you look good. I found I like your ads, they're good. You seem like you do a good job. I would want to know, they have a motivation. If they're a restaurant hiring you, they're concerned about lawsuits, damage to their reputation, and I would want to know more specifically about what parts that was. And if they said they liked me, well, what did they like about it? And if it was really my good reputation with people, then that would tell me, that already suggests to me a couple ideas about customer testimonials. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, yeah.
Regarding this point, when sometimes we ask a client an open-ended question, like, what did you like most about our service? That sometimes puts us in a position where we are not really sure about where we stand. I'm just trying to make this remark. When you ask such a question, any company,
right,
they should put a list, not keep it open-end. Because sometimes this will show that we don't really know what we stand for.
I think that there's two parts to that. I think you're right, but I think I might actually start. What I find when you start doing surveys is you start with one question, you do a small sample size. You guys are all very smart. You can look at stuff and go, see where the spikes are. People are always saying they like this or whatever, and then develop questions that actually then go back and do a second set of surveys that bring out why that's important. Because that's what we really want to know.
I'm saying this remark because I lived it in a real case situation where I teach something, and I've been doing it for a very long time. When I asked my students certain questions just to know what they thought about us, they looked at me like this, you should know. Although we were asking them to improve certain qualities, and we know that we're doing right. You see why I'm asking this? And sometimes it's dangerous to ask questions to clients when they're not really fit into where you want to go with that question. So we need to be careful about this, because sometimes, like Boyker, they're the top of the line in what they do.
Yes.
So if you ask a client, why did you pick us? No, I'm just saying, I'm just giving you a hint about not going too far with open-ended questions, because that will backfire sometimes.
Yeah, I think I would start the more open-ended and more generic questions I would ask in real-life interviews if I really wasn't sure how to get to the next level. It's just the whole exercise was really just so you don't. The first level is really not going to be very helpful. I suspect that normally when you sit down and spend a few minutes with colleagues, that you can guess most of the information you can ask to get to the next level. Just asking, what did you like, is a very surface question. Asking more questions about the specificity of what they liked, what qualities about it, or understanding what that's important. That's where you really want to end up with your final set of questionnaires.
And sometimes maybe we need to already know what could be the answer and see which is the highest ranked among these. For example, in big companies.
Absolutely.
For us to know where to go in the next step.
So let's actually talk about some other tools you guys can use. Google Analytics is, how many people have Google Analytics on for their websites or their clients' websites now? Wow, not enough hands. Please, if you guys have a website, how many people here have a website or a client has a website that's important to doing business? Sure, a lot more hands than there were for the Google Analytics. Do you guys have another solution? If you're not using Google, do you have something else you're using? You outsource the data? Why? You should. I mean, even for you don't have to offer the service. You can think about what you really want to do is Google Analytics. This is like a treasure trove as a marketer. You get to find out where people come to you. Do they come from social channels? Do they come from search engines? If they come from search engines, it can tell you what they consume on your website. That tells you something about the information they're seeking. This is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tool to understand what people are consuming on your website and what's important to them. I highly recommend that you guys either implement it or get the data reports that tell you that's as long as you're getting the data, so you are getting the data. As long as you're doing that, that's awesome. That's what's important. Google Trends more talks about is if you type in your product category names, it tells you what is happening on the web. These are all free. Google AdWords has a keyword suggestion tool. It tells you what other related terms people use. It helps you to understand more, again, when people are searching for things in your product, what they're searching for. If you want to go, Alexa.com is a way to do good intel on your competitors. It's not great, but it does tell you. This is hard to read, but this is actually about the Movenpick Hotel. And really here what you'd see is that for a hotel that they're a wonderful hotel. I mean, no disrespect to them, but most of the incoming search according to Alexa is on their name. And someone give her, can you ask louder? What's better than Alexa? I don't know. It's hard to get public data. I would probably actually use keyword tools, and I'll show you a couple. I'll show you one that I know of that I like. Can be better about showing you the kinds of search terms. Let's see if that's the next one here. Word Tracker. Now this is about $500 for a permanent license. If you're really serious about understanding what people are looking for, how they look for it, this tool is going to give you all those answers. It's a much better tool than anything. Any questions about what we just shot through there? So some people, there's a lot of B2B on Twitter. I try to do a combination. Lifestyle brands are very easy to do. They're wonderful examples. These are 10 B2B companies on Twitter. And you recognize probably a number of those names. You have Oracle, Radian. Does anyone know who Radian 6 is here? Some people? It's software. Intel is chips. Oracle is software. Cisco is routers. CME Group is financial services. Anybody know CME Group? Nobody. They're huge. They have 752,000 followers, and what they mostly, this is a financial services company. They tweet, they tweet about finance, some of their own news, some topical news, breaking news regarding the markets. Cisco, which is one of the leaders in social media, I think I heard somebody mention that. I know the folks at Cisco and their social media group, real leaders in terms of B2B social media. They talk about the same thing. They talk about things that they're doing. They talk about events that they belong to, news that influences networking. This is the kind of content that they share. These are good people to follow if you're looking for B2B examples. And Oracle, I think, is a good one to follow. Is it just to give you some ideas about what people are sharing. Now, these are, there's very little conversation. They do retweets of information. There's very little conversation happening with customers. Let's talk about goals. Part of, fundamentally, these questions that we're going to share in terms of the goals is you need to ask yourself what's really going to be different in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. Is that really what you want to move? Is that the dial that you want to move? If you just get 10,000 more followers on Facebook, what does that change? What does you want to have different from that? We're going to come back to this alignment too, but if that difference, when you ask that question, is that really aligned with your marketing or departmental goals? So what's going to be different, and does that result? I doubt that 10,000 more followers is going to align with any meaningful goal. Most common goals are increased brand awareness. There's a lot of different, there are different studies. I didn't particularly pull one out. I just pulled out the most common ones I come across, because all the studies are a little different, but they're pretty much all the same group. Increase positive sentiment online. You heard earlier about examples when people aren't present online, really bad things can happen. So controlling that, not controlling, influencing that conversation. Build relationships with influencers. Increase web traffic. I think that's and improve customer retention or satisfaction. Now you may have all of these. It's important just to kind of prioritize and start at the top. Trying to meet that many masters, that many different things, is a fool's errand. Start with the most important one and try to do what you can to include others, but start with the most important one first. Does anyone know this acronym, SMART goals? Some people do. So SMART goals are just, it's an acronym to way you form a goal. And it's specific. It says exactly what you want to do. It's measurable. You know when it's done, when it's completed. It's aligned with your departmental or your business goals. A lot of people have goals that don't align with their larger premise, and that's really important that it's aligned. That it's results focused, something's going to be different other than like have more people like us is not really results focused. And time bound, when you're going to do it. A lot of times you're going to miss your goals, and that's okay. This is a learning evolutionary process. But when you have goals, you know what's important, what you want to get out of it. You can assign the value of your time and resources to achieve the goal. So let's just look at smart versus unsmart. I just use this example. We want to grow our Twitter followers and Facebook fans by 10,000. Now, a SMART goal would be something like this. If you knew that the more content that was downloaded in terms of case studies, the more demos you got, or the more inquiries you had for the next step, it was a way to align, that this might be a reasonable goal. It has all the pieces. Increase content downloads of case studies by 50% in the next 6 months. So that's something we can measure, we know when it's done, and we have a time frame. So now we have something to work for. So I'll put back the SMART goals thing, but I'd like you guys to write down one goal that you guys would like to do based on the work we've done so far. Go back into your groups. We're going to spend 5 minutes doing it. And I'd like to have a couple people share the goals when we're done. But write down a SMART goal. And I'll put the SMART part up here. And again, you're probably going to have multiple goals, and that's fine. But let's just pick one to practice writing a SMART goal, okay? The question is just, can you write down one SMART goal? Yeah, one SMART goal is the assignment. So what that goal might be, how that might look like is, one of the first things that you'd want to have is restaurants display that sticker. So if you're doing a certification, the first goal you might be is to look at getting 5,000 of those stickers and displayed, or 10,000 of the stickers displayed, whatever that number you think is realistic, in 6 months or a year, whatever that time period is. And once you have that as a goal, now you can start figuring out how you might make that happen, because now you have people seeing the sticker pop up in windows. And that might suggest strategies about how to create more awareness for those. You could highlight restaurants on your Facebook page. You could talk to customers, do testimonials. There are all kinds of things that might come from that, based on a goal that is, place 10,000 stickers in restaurant windows of that's been Boiker certified. So that's just one goal. Does somebody have a goal that they're willing to share? So they say the goal to be the pioneer in providing eco-friendly restaurants. So that's very specific, but it's not measurable and doesn't have a timeline. How is it measurable? Okay, 1 year time frame. I'm still not sure that's measurable. I mean, I understand. You're really close. You just need to have something. You're saying, what would designate you as being the pioneer in that? How would you measure that? Well, that's measuring preference, but it doesn't necessarily, part of that was being a pioneer.
Yeah, we can start with one shop, let's say. That's measurable. It's one shop for a period of 6 months, let's say. And we say this shop will be converted to an eco-friendly environment. And then definitely we have to communicate on social media and on maybe traditional media, part of it. But I mean, we have to communicate on this. And then every time we convert one after the other, because we have like 30 branches here, if we're talking Dunkin', but I mean, we can convert one after the other, and automatically definitely we have to tell everybody about it, especially our fans.
I don't want to get bogged down into semantics.
But tell them how to do it.
I'm not sure that would be being the pioneer, but saying convert all 30 stores to this thing, that's measurable. I'm not sure there's a pioneer measure, per se. You might be a pioneer.
I didn't get it, sorry, I didn't get it.
You just to say you're going to move all 30 stores to that level is a measurable goal. Because you know at the end of when you hit 30 stores. That's all I'm saying. I would just make sure there's a number that you can measure.
But it's impossible. I mean, 30 stores can take big investment.
So let's say 10 stores in 1 year. That's measurable. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Just say that again so everybody can hear you.
During 2013, the number of our beneficiaries should increase 30% from 2012.
So, as an NGO,
yes,
do you use social media to deliver that service to your client system?
To promote the services.
Oh, do you? You really get it out there? So, okay, because a lot of NGOs I know don't always necessarily have, depending on what you're delivering, don't always have that ability to connect through social media, whereas they might use social media to generate revenue or awareness. But you're saying you actually get the word out you can actually use social media to reach your client system.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I think that's a good one. That's measurable, it's specific. Who else has one they're willing to share? We have one right here. This will be the last one, go ahead.
Yes, we're coming from business to business scenario. We were machine manufacturer, and the objective would be to tackle a certain country, for example, Saudi Arabia, to get introduced to decision makers for all factories in the juice business with the production of more than 10,000 cases per year.
So I think that you're really close. It's missing a couple of things. Anyone want to give a shit about what it's missing? It's so close. Yeah.
Okay. Our objective is to tackle a country, for example, Saudi Arabia, to get introduced to decision makers for juice factories with a turnover or a sales per year more than 10,000 cases, 10,000 cases of juices.
Okay, so we have, you said a year.
In 1 year.
In 1 year. And you didn't say what was missing one other thing. Yeah, you don't have a number with that. You said you identified the kind of businesses. The only thing you're missing is you'd say the top 10 or all 20, if there are 20 of them, or the top 3, whatever that number is. You didn't have the number of, you said all the people who produce so much juice.
Above certain number.
Certain number. How many people is that?
It depends on the country.
Right, but you'd find that out and say, if there were 30 in that country, I don't know if that's too high or too few. If there are 30, if you were really going to try all 30 in 6 months or a year, or do 10 in a year, whatever your goal is, that's the only thing you're missing, is having that number.
Okay.
Because you don't know, you had the right thing. You just want to dial that and add a number to, the top 5 or the all 30 or whatever that number is. So you know when you get to that, when you've achieved that. Okay. So very good, you guys. I know it's hard. I know it's like not a lot of fun, but I wanted you guys to experience this. I really spent most of my time doing it, and I don't think that we've done a perfect job because it's just too hard with this many different people. But I hope that you've shared, just at least trying to understand, when you go back in this process, think about what you're trying to accomplish, try to be specific about it, try to put numbers to it. It's an evolving process. You guys really are pioneers in what you're doing. Once you start practicing, you'll get much better at it. And a couple of you are very good at it now, so. So I'd like to share some interesting examples. This is, I think, very telling. I was talking about Coke earlier and some of the mistakes that Coke did. In terms of just likes, they're number 1. But has anybody ever gone to the Coke Facebook? Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but most of the stuff that they talk about is just about themselves. Lots of talking about themselves. And so what's interesting is number 2 there, a lot fewer likes, is number 1 for talked about. Now, in case you don't know what talked about is, it's an algorithm that Facebook assigns, and the way they figure out their algorithm is based on people like it, like comments, they interact with, share it, write something. It's a little hard to understand number, but Starbucks is number 1. It's a lifestyle product. Lifestyles are always going to be a little bit easier to do than B2B. But if you looked at just a quick sample of the Starbucks Facebook, you'd see over here, who knows, does anyone know Dave Matthews Band? No, but it's a big band. They're talking about the band in the U.S., the football season, American football, and I know that's not real football, but American football just started, so they're asking people, who's your team pick for this season? Over here, and it's a little harder to see, as a teacher, all the kids just went back to school, and it's after about a week, and it said, hey, after the whole first week, hope all you teachers are doing great. That's why they're number 1 and talked about. They're very conversational. Starbucks is a lifestyle brand. They can talk about these things because it works in with their brand strategy. Applied Materials is a semiconductor materials company. They now call it nano manufacturing. So what the heck are you going to talk about on Facebook if you're a semiconductor company? So Facebook people said, let's find out who, I don't know, they said, let's find out, if somebody asked me if we should do a Facebook page for a semiconductor company, like Applied, they're not even a semiconductor company, they do semiconductor materials for manufacturing. So they said, well, who's following us? We have a couple thousand people following us. So they went and looked at it. And about 85% of the people that they could identify were employees, which is not a bad thing. I laugh too, but think about it. It's a 5,000 person company, I think. You have about 1,800 people following you who work for your company. That other percent included reporters, market analysts, and other stakeholders. Now that's kind of interesting. So if you're a company and you don't necessarily have a Facebook strategy, this tells you a couple things. You can talk about, this is fundamentally a modern version of a company newsletter where you can share things that are happening internally in the company that you would be transparent about and that you'd want your stakeholders to know. By just looking at who's listening, it just tells them what they can talk about. And so they talk about the company in more human terms that speak to the employees, and also things that help them look good in front of press and market analysts. This is a bank example we have some banks here. Can I see a show of hands of folks who are from banks here? Yeah, a few people. So are you guys doing social stuff right now with the banks? Yeah? Are you? Not yet? So this is Smith Barney. They're a brokerage firm. This guy is a financial advisor. They're about, like a very heavily regulated industry, this is very sensitive. You always have ways to do it. Even regulated industries, you talk to people, it's okay. You just need to work with your lawyers. The reality is that we have employees that we trust to use email, we trust to use the phone, and we don't have heavy guidelines. We expect them to use their common sense. So in the same kind of way that even in regulated industries, there are ways to use social media. This is what they allowed, how they rolled this out was interesting. They did this in June, May, June, they announced it, and they started with about, I think, an elite group. They did under very highly trained, vetted, highly monitored people, like 100, something like that, maybe not even that many, and they did that for some number of months. That's how they started. So everybody was heavily trained, monitored, they tracked that. The next phase, and the things that this guy is tweeting, I'll go back. So they do that, and now they're in the process where they're opening it up to about 600 members. This is phase 2 of this, and they allow them to use Twitter and LinkedIn, which up until recently, most banks didn't allow. Their next phase is to roll this out in segments to all 17,000 advisors, financial advisors. So what this guy is doing, he has a strategy of sharing things around. You can't pump things up in banking, but you can talk about the news. You can share insight. He even shares a quote from Sophocles: "Without labor, nothing prospers." So there's a combination of insight, smarts, good content. It's a way to build relationships for clients. They're on LinkedIn. They're allowed to have a robust profile. It talks about what they do. They just can't recommend or like other financial advisor because of regulations. There's a way even for banking to use social media. Citibank did something that was interesting. They have, we saw the CME group and Oracle pretty much didn't talk to anybody. They tended to tweet industry news that was relevant, events that they were sponsoring, things like that. Citi has their own separate account. This is called Citi Ask Citi. Citi wanted to appeal to the younger, urban, more affluent. So they created a channel. It's fundamentally a customer service channel. And these are hard to read, but they actually have conversations with people. So some guy out of Texas said, "Hey, shout out to Dora, branch manager in Austin, Texas, for helping my wife with her retirement plan." They retweeted that. Somebody else is like, said here, "Hey, I deposited my check through my phone." I don't know if do you guys do that? They take a photo of a check and it deposits the thing. It's a new technology. Oh, it's kind of cool. Someone said, "Hey, it's kind of cool." And they said, "Cool, awesome." So this is a very conversational channel. This is a bank talking to people and sharing that kind of information. So there's lots of ways you can interact. This, Avia. How many people actually know Avia? Does anyone here know Avia? It's a UK, we have one. Avia this is targeted for young people. Avia does pension planning. Pension planning. So what they did is they have a Facebook group, which they talk about down here. It's a video. This guy is a magician. Video opens up. This is me on a skateboard. He's on a skateboard. He stops and says, "Hey, you guys like money? This is a very low tech. This is a camera." They go, "Sure." And it's all done kind of people on the street. He shows them a blank screen. He shows them this little trick with money and makes more money appear. They laugh. It's all great. He says, "You guys like money." At the end of it, there's a little thing that says, "Make your money grow. Talk to your boss about your pension plan." That's the end thing. It's got 155,000 views talking about pension plans for young folk. I bet you, I don't know how much that costs to do. Maybe $20,000, maybe more, maybe less. Do you think that out of 155,000 views that somebody went to their boss and said, "Hey, I saw this thing from a review about pension plans. Should we talk about it? How many sales calls did this generate? You know, somebody had these conversations. Was it worth $20,000? I expect it was. And this is all done through YouTube. Looks like you guys a little bit, right? You guys a little tired? This is Cree. Cree is a lighting, LED lighting. They do a month, they take 5 people, and they have people submit the worst lighting scenario. And they do basically, do you guys watch those reality shows, the home makeover type shows? They do a lighting makeover show for 5 people. They go in, they do it for them. And they create YouTube videos of it. It's a fun, engaging way around lighting. How exciting is lighting? But these guys make it kind of fun and engage people. We're going to talk about content here. Just really quick, I want to share some data with you. This is a blog post, but the same data is true about indexed pages on a website. So this talks about how, down here is how many pages they have indexed. 0 to 12, 23 to 20, 0 to 12, 12 to 23, 24 to 51, 52. Those are pages that are indexed by Google, blog posts. And this is across industry by a group called HubSpot. I don't know if you remember, that was one of the top ones in Twitter. Companies that had 0 to 11 pages that were indexed on a blog got about 10 inbound leads a month. When they had 12 to 23, they got 10. 9 to 10. They had 24 to 51 blog posts indexed. It goes to 13. That's pretty interesting. That's a big increase. But look at here. It jumps 77% when they have more than 52 indexed pages to 23 inbound leads. Having content is a great way to generate real money. The fact that people they find it hard to find time to write blogs or hire people. Gosh, I mean, this is true with just content. If I had $50,000, I'd hire a reporter to write tons of great content for my site because there's data that shows it brings in real business. We trust people who help us. People make us successful. We want to work for people who make us happy or delight us. So when we talk about what hurts, it's like we're trying to solve problems for people. How do we solve problems in their life? What concerns them? How do we make their life better? And providing content that addresses that. What's really hard, and as a marketer, I understand that this is just really hard. You need to talk about what you know, not about what you sell. Nobody cares what you sell. But they do care what's inside your head. You guys are some smart people. You have smart people in your companies or your clients' companies. This is a way to actually find out what people want to know that you possess domain expertise on. This is Chaw Creek. It's a little place in Belize. This guy bought David Meerman Scott's book down in Belize, read it. He said, hey, I can do that. Bought Word Tracker. And they used to spend tons of advertising dollars on travel magazines and pay-per-click Google ads, and that was where all their money went. So he started writing posts, and he doesn't have blogs so much. He writes content. So they're in Belize. Anyone ever been to Belize here? Anybody? It's in Mexico, near Mexico. It has Mayan cultures near Guatemala. People go there on their honeymoon. It's very tropical. And he found out by buying Word Tracker and looking up Belize and inns and hotel, that people looked about honeymoon information. They looked about regional information about the cultures. So he started writing that content. He was able to, he gets 80% of all his bookings now through organic search because he has that much content. If you type in Belize honeymoon, he's one of the top search results. Just because he created content that's through the entire site about things related to him. He'll even write about travel destinations that are a couple hours away from him. He follows what's called an 80-20 rule. 80% of the content is not self-serving. It's about other things that are relevant to people's search. The words that people will search for, like by using Word Tracker. Wrote articles for that then became indexed. He does no advertising anymore. and they're very busy. If this guy can do it, this little place down in Belize, group of you guys can own the world if you want to. What is your domain expertise? This goes back to what we've been talking about. What do you have that you can talk about? So kind of using, what do you know when you think back to the example that we did? When you think back in terms of what would your customers want to know about you? Had a delightful dinner last night at an awesome restaurant. And we were talking about what would people want to know from them. Their food is phenomenal. They have, it's incredible, salmon is their specialty. And what they have is you have a place that's has a certain air and style to it. And patrons, one of the things you might do as a restaurant is have very exclusive special opportunities to bring in special diners and to learn how to maybe cook a very special salmon dish, a signature salmon dish that you do for just very special customers that's very exciting for them to learn to do. Their expertise is salmon and cooking and an incredible experience. How can they share and include people in that process? So I'd like you just to take 5 minutes and think about what your own domain expertise is. Based on the other work we've done, going back to looking at our customers, what we're trying to sell, what they would want to know in terms of their concerns. Boiker, they have food safety. There's a lot of opportunity in teaching people about food safety. Managers, their domain expertise, food safety. What is yours? So just spend like 4 minutes working in little groups, write that down, and we'll come back. There's a couple of people doing what's called brand journalism. Now, brand journalism means that you pay the reporters, they're on staff, they work for you. You provide information that's, again, like even going back to Boiker, providing information and news stories about food safety that's more current. It's like you're having your own mini publication. And there are several people doing this very well because it serves their needs. This is ThreatPost. Kaspersky is a security software company, and they have a thing called threatpost.com. And all they do is produce news about threats to IT, to technology things. So MIS, the technology managers come in the morning and go, what's my greatest threat to my network this morning? They go to threatpost.com, and it's a little hard to see, but it says Kaspersky Lab Security News Service. That's brand journalism. People come to a service that's owned by a company because they provide quality information. This is Intel Free Press. This is brilliant. They actually have they have 2 or 3 news writers. They're professional journalists who no longer are journalists, but they're journalists for the company. And these guys they cover things that are of interest to Intel customers specifically, but they don't cover marketing kinds of stuff. So if a PR comes out and says, hey, we'd like you to cover our event, they ask, well, are you already talking to the press about it? They go, yes. No, then we're not going to cover it. They cover only news that's truly interesting, that's relevant to the customers. Intel Free Press is a great example of this. Open Forum. Has anyone heard of American Express Open Forum? This is American Express does a credit card company, you may know. They target business owners a lot. This website is chock full. They hire all kinds of contributors and pay them to do basically monthly columns of a couple posts. And it's full about business information from marketing to good business practices. These are all brand journalism. And everybody knows when they come there, it's real clear who's providing the information. Do you think that there's a benefit at actually being a company that people consider a resource for information that's specific to what they're doing? Yeah. Content creation is always really tough. It's domain expertise. You probably have experts within your company. I bet you at Boiker, you guys have folks who know a lot about food safety. Great resource, just to interview them. I know that a lot of times, if you're talking about blog creation in terms of content, sometimes it's really hard to get people to do blogs. It's easier if you can make the process simpler for folks. You can get blogs. Chasing down people to write blogs is just not worth the time and energy because people don't do it. It's not the first priority. But there's other ways to capture that. You can have a blog booth, which is just basically a sound chamber, a place that's quiet where you can do an interview. You record it. You can do recordings on an interview with somebody who's a knowledge. It can be internal expert or an external expert. You can ask them questions, do an interview, record it. I prefer video. I think video is a great format to catch little things. You can even have your own studio. This is SEO Moz. They do a thing called Whiteboard Friday. It is a conference room. It's a little teeny conference room. And they literally have a camera here and a whiteboard right here. And they stand up in front and they talk about something regarding SEO. So you can have your own studio. They don't transcribe this. But let's say you set up a little studio or a little blog booth. People may not write for you, but who's ever been to a party and go, so tell me what you do for a living? And they never shut up, right? People are happy to tell you what they do for a living. If you ask them, what are you working on this week? People will tell you what's important. Again, you're recording this or videotaping this. You can make it guided. You can ask them specific questions if you know they're working on something you want to talk about specifically, or just ask an open-ended question. Take that information, transcribe it, pay for a transcription service, and then look at what you have. When you read through that transcription, do you have a blog post? Do you have a bunch of blog posts? Do you have an interview? Do you have an article? One of the things you can do, for instance, let's say I wanted to do a series of experts regarding maybe fashion. And I went and found 5 people, including somebody from my own company, but 4 other people, and asked them 5 questions each, the same questions about something about upcoming fashion or how to dress more smartly, or if it's about real estate, whatever. Ask them all the same 5 questions. And I videotaped it. So now I have 5 great interviews that I can post to my blog or my YouTube channel or share with my social media channels. If I transcribe that, I can put all their answers together, all the answers for number 1, and now I have a written blog post, all the number 1 answers together, all the number 2 answers together, and so forth. So now I have 5 more blog posts which are interesting. And I can run that over 5 weeks, one a week or something I share on my social channels. If I want to, I can then put those all together after that into an ebook. So now I have an ebook with 5 experts talking about with all the answers together. 1 project, 3 different sets of content. Just record people talking, transcribe it, decide what you have. You might have an article, you might have a series, you can do a vlog. It's a very powerful way to create content. You can do this at trade shows. Go and record people at trade shows, talk to experts, ask 5 experts the same question or same series of questions. Create a lot of content for your blog or for content you're creating on your website. I just wanted to about publishing. This is when you publish to social channels, like you're probably going to publish originally on your blog or whatever other main site, probably your blog. Instead of just announcing everything at the same time, people are in different time zones here, I would stagger it out. And it depends on what channels you're really using. I assume that you're using Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. So maybe I publish it at 8 in the morning on my blog, or even earlier. I might do tweets 2 or 3 times through the day, but the first one like at 9, maybe 1 at noon and 1 at 3. I would probably share it only once on my Facebook channel. Maybe I do that at 10 o'clock. If it's a digital asset that I can save as a PDF, I might save it to SlideShare. Great way to drive revenue. Drive clicks. And I might then share it later in the month in my newsletter. So by staggering it, you get different people at different times, and you get a greater impact and greater longevity of sharing. I just want to make sure that how many people have capture emails on their website, their company website, or their client's website? Does anybody capture emails for a newsletter? Yeah? This is my blog. I actually do a newsletter. And they click on that, they get this little pop-up. And I'll show you the service that does this. It's a free service. Up to 2,000. It's free up to 2,000 names. And all I ask for is an email address, and it tells them what they're getting this free monthly newsletter. And it's a service called MailChimp. Social media is awesome. Email is really great too, because you can have a dialogue with people that are giving you permission. Because not everybody's going to always come back to your Facebook page or always come back to your blog. One of the things that I would encourage you when you roll your programs out, if you don't already, include employees several ways. Include employees by having them telling what you're doing, giving an opportunity to train them to also participate if you feel comfortable doing that. Get employees to maybe tweet for you or on your behalf or post things on the blog. Give them assignments, give them training to do it. If nothing else, if they have social channels, if you're launching a new campaign, let them know in advance. Say, hey, we'd love to have you share this if you want. And give them like the sample, like 120 character sample of what they might share. Here's a suggested tweet for you, or post you might share on your social network. We're launching our new thing. This is a great way to include employees. And this is actually just an often missed one. Our conference organizers are smart enough to do it. There's a thing, they have their little follow buttons at the very bottom of their email. This is a very good practice. There's even a service that normally your information technology people can do this for you, or your computer people. There's also a program called wisestamp.com. It does it automatically. You can customize it. It's a really great little tool. It's free. There's also a paid version. And just really quickly, most of you wouldn't confuse this. I find this happens a lot, and customers, though, confuse social share buttons and social follow buttons. So I want to make a point that you guys have this question with, this conversation with your people. Follow buttons are really easy. Those are if you want to follow the thing. But what you want on shared content is like here, this is a blog post. You can tweet it or like it right from the page. So make sure, I find for some reason, some web people actually will put follow buttons on web contents. Just one thing I want to cover, we're going to cover consistency real quick and then measurement. Number of posts per day. If you share less than 3 posts, which is 1 or 2 posts a day on Facebook, you have higher engagement. There's different data that shows different amounts, but that tends to be pretty consistent with my experience. So 1 or 2 posts a day on Facebook in terms of consistency. Facebook users, that's what I just said. Length actually really impacts engagement. 80 characters seems to be the data that comes back, 80, 87 characters. For some reason, I have the most influence in terms of shareability and reads engagement. Twitter, remember Twitter, when you tweet something, it's there in that stream for a little while and it's gone within about an hour or 10, 15 minutes. I tend to like to see clients tweet 10 to 15 times a day content. Sounds like a lot, but my experience is that actually pays off, and Twitter is good for that. And this is actually this is data, we're talking about what measurement you guys might use. 65% of respondents said they used retweets, comments, fans, likes is a measurement success. I think those are nice for health, but they don't really tell you very much. This is more important. Sentiment overall was 46% of respondents. Web traffic was a measurement that 39% used. Conversion to leads was 34%, which is great. And satisfaction rates was 33%. And share of voice, or total mentions online, 27%. And these are the most common ways, just in your own measurement. This is from an Altimeter group again. This is a thing called the ROI Cookbook, free for download from altimeter.com. They found that anecdotal evidence, correlation data, and actually multivariate testing. So they knew through discussion that business was closed was one of the top ways they collected data, which is surprising. Correlation, that they tracked, you can often track a certain action on a website that leads to a sale, request for a demo, request for a product, some kind of download. And also multivariate testing, which is actually doing a testing. Social media promote this set of things, and social media not to promote that, just to see if you get more bang. It's a good way to test it. Does anybody use Hootsuite here? Yeah, it's a great tool for managing multiple channels. It's free. I use the Pro version. It's really handy. You can actually schedule things. It can schedule things for you. You can share things in multiple channels. We talked about staggering. From Hootsuite, you can actually do LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, and stagger when those actually happen. Hootsuite.com. Buffer is actually a nice little tool also. You set up a predefined list of times that you want things to go out. You'll find that certain times are more effective than others. And once you save a page you want to share or something like that, you load it in here, you go click, and it automatically assigns it to the next time that you've predefined in terms of times to go out. It also provides analytics of click-through rates, shares, retweets. Yeah, Buffer. Crowd Booster and Sprout Social are both, they basically, the same kind of tools, but they actually show you specifically what times to maximize your tweets, the things you share, or your posts to get the greatest amount of engagement. These are paid tools. Crowd Booster and Buffer. Oops, I'm sorry. Crowd Booster and Sprout Social. And the last thing I'd like to leave you with is I thought was interesting. This is from the same ROI cookbook report, that while social media was great for the goals we talked about, an overwhelming respondents said that they found 84% said that customer insight was the greatest value they received. 51% said decision making because they understood what their customers wanted. 35% investment and financial impact was 32%, but customer insight is really a great way to get something out of social media. What are your customers talking about? What do they like? We talked about gathering data. This is a way to understand what your customers really want. I think that we'll wrap it up there. Any questions before we wrap up? It's been a long day. You guys?
I just want to comment on the statistics.
Yeah.
That we did initially. And then the lady commented that the bosses are not so far, let's say, flexible in accepting decisions towards digital networking because they're not convinced yet. The statistics we did is based on a certain elite of samples. If you go to the street and make the same statistics, the numbers will completely differ from here. Okay. And that's why as of today in the Middle East, we're still not reaching this level of awareness or acceptance within the city.
Social adoption or social adoption? But do you see it growing? Yeah. So.
It's coming.
It's coming. Anything else before we wrap up? I know there's somebody else waiting to talk to you. Listen, I really appreciate your time very much. You guys are wonderful. I know we skipped some slides. Someone's waiting for us here. But I know all the presentation's online. And I thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much.